Hi, Scorpio. All right. Welcome to Opal Oracle if you're new. If you're returning, it's nice to have you back. My friend let me borrow these so I could borrow the sound. I never thought about that before. Let's see if we can do it. I don't know how you're supposed to do it, but... No, they're not spaceships. Do it softer, I guess. Sorry if that was loud. That's nicer. All right, Scorpio, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Let's put these away. Beautiful presentation, right? Really simple, but intricate at the same time. Now, Zumi gave me a message before I began. The Hornet and Zumi both gave me messages. There's always a message in everything, right? It's not generally a literal interpretation. It's about paying attention to the in-betweens, right? She doesn't want you to worry about... There's that hornet again. Can you see it? I must smell good, which I should take as a compliment. But it's kind of scary, you know? Like a little bit. Like, what would happen if that bit me? It'd sting for a second, right? Maybe it would expand a little bit. I wouldn't die. You know, most folks aren't going to die. But why are we really afraid of those? Like, if a hornet landed on an animal, they would just sit there or stand there, right? They're not going to really bat it off unless it's compulsive. There's a lot of them, you know. It's a human conditioning to be afraid of Mother Nature, right? We've been conditioned to be that way. We've been conditioned to think that we're not safe and loved and protected, that whatever we have can be taken away at any point in time because of nuclear war or you know, whatever the situation is. But if we were really in touch with Mother Nature, in tune with Mother Nature, knew about our surroundings, like what to eat, what's edible, what's not edible, what plants can you make baskets out of, like how would you make clothes if you couldn't go to the store? Right, these are good questions. They're basic things that we should know. Right, but we're not taught that anymore because there's a push to rely on the external and something outside of ourselves to make ourselves feel, well, safe, loved, protected, full, whatever. Now this relates to the North Node is in Leo. You have so many planets in your sign right now. Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter. But a lot of these will be changing during your month too. All of those eventually by December will not be there anymore, right? And the North Node is moving from Leo to Cancer, which is about that sort of tight-knit tribe community, right? It's interesting it's going backwards. Does it mean that it will be the North Node will be in Gemini next? Never thought about that. Thank you. All right. Let's get into your reading here. Well, you, right in the center. Good. Heart of the matter. You. You now. You in the present moment. In the future, you being able to look at yourself and your environment in such a way. I heard you have a choice to see how stable you are, how much you've grown, taking all it is that you've grown and making it like deciding that that's me now, right? There's a lizard. I know there's still a part of you that thinks you're going to get stung, right? Because you have a stinger, technically. And I heard once bitten, twice shy, right? Whoa. Oh, that's a bee. The seasons are changing, you know? The seasons are changing. I see that it's important during this present moment for you to think about next spring. Whatever you talk about now, for what it is that you want, this is important, Scorpio. What it is that you talk about, I want you to talk about what you want next spring to look like. Now, that doesn't mean that all the little parts of that are going to completely pan out in exactly the way that you desire, right? Your I desire, but it will have it work out eventually. You have to know that in your heart, right? And accept all the changes that you've been through and embrace them, really incorporate them into yourself, right? Make it, emulsify your old, emulsify the new parts of you, because I think what happens, think about it when you make salad dressing from scratch, right? You have oil and you have vinegar. Or oil and an acid, right? But for them to become a solid, you have acid first. Hi, Crow. And then you add a little bit of oil at a time. But as you're adding it, you have to have a certain amount of energy and action, right? It's like slow drizzle, though, because if you try to put too much oil in at once, what happens is it just separates because they're opposites. But you already know that. I heard this month, it's like, I saw you with a table and all these different sort of bowls with liquids and all these different things, actually, but they were all in these bowls. You had already organized everything, right? You put things in its place, but now you put everything in one place, and now you have to see what you can combine and see what I heard you don't need anymore, because sometimes things seem messy, right? Or there seems too much of something. But once you organize a messy space, an unorganized space, once you organize that space, well, what happens? You have so much more room than you thought that you did, right? Because the pieces fit together better. What I like what you're learning about is the star card, which is Aquarius. You're learning a lot about how your subconscious determines which is our past in a way, right? And how that relates to who we think that we are, subconsciously determines what the conscious position is, what it is that you're actually able to achieve in this world. I heard miraculously or materialistically. You know? Bless you. You know, that because part of the star too, yes, you know, people can be like, oh, you're getting what you want, and you very well may be. Something that you've been asking for a really long time. I see healing also from childhood is big. Healing from past relationships. Venus is in retrograde, right? But this is also where it's about, this is out of your hands, in a way, right? The stars, they do what they please. They've been doing what they pleased for a very long time. Now, where free will comes in, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, but it's important, you know, that's where we have free will. Okay, these external things happen outside of us all the time, or maybe they even happen internally, but like how do we deal with it? You know, there's always an in inside of an in. There's always an out inside of the outside, right? Where do you want to be? You choose. You choose where you want to be and how you want to get there. What kind of energy you want to expend, you know? And it all depends on how you see yourself. You know, you rule the subconscious. I know you're afraid of falling backwards, of going backwards, of repeating old mistakes, of having to feel, because when you feel pain, not that all people's pain isn't heavy, but when I sense when you feel pain, you feel it. Good girls with me, yes, I know. When you feel it, it is heavy, right? It's really, and because you're water, it's hard to explain what it is that you're going through. You know, how to say it, how to be understood. I've said it before, but writing for you is really important because, you know, God always understands you. You know, God will always understand you. Mother Nature will always understand you. It may not give you the answers that you want, like that hornet, right? I could have viewed that in a you know, a myriad of ways. It all depends on how you want to look at it. And it's important to look at it. You know, yes, I had my eyes closed, but I was still looking at it in my emotions. Like, why, you know, I was looking at the energy of my body by closing my eyes. That's why when I started this channel, I didn't show my face because I didn't want to distract anyone from the messages, right? Good girl. Yes, you are. Now, what you will be learning about, we have a card that represents where you're stuck, where you're still stuck. The like, where does your anxiety come from when you get it, you know? Really, and checking in, and I think I saw the oil and water again. It's like, a lot of animals talking. Like, I went back to how everything's a message, but then I also thought about where, sure, we can always learn from what's around us, but sometimes maybe that crow's just talking to that crow. I mean, of course, it's relative, right? You can go there if you want to, but I want you to know that some things are just outside of you that I heard aren't your business. And it's not to say that you're not allowed to be involved in whatever you're involved in totality, everything. I'm just saying that there's something about, like, not worrying about that so much and trying to figure out all the little answers, because you became a new person, right? You've been becoming new people as you live in this life. But with Jupiter in your first house in Western astrology anyway is a big deal in determining, who it is as yourself. Now, in Vedic astrology, Jupiter's actually it's been in Libra this past year, and this year it will be you. So whatever you've been doing this year, the good parts of that, if you've been working at it and accepting it, changing, like not hiding so much, but like coming out of yourself a little bit more, right? Accepting more of the parts of Taurus, your opposite sign, and just what that means to, like, because Jupiter in Scorpio, you're still, the opposing would be Taurus, right? You're like figuring out your worth about it, and then you'll be actualizing that this year, right? And that's good, because that'll help you to be able to face more of your fears so that you can actually express what it is that you're feeling when you're feeling it, and not be so afraid to have to hide so much. I mean, if you need to protect yourself, because I know a lot of Scorpios say that, you feel the need to protect yourself. Well, I get that. But remember, you don't have to, right? Just because I remember when I learned this lesson, I guess I need to share it with you. I used to have a pretty tough life in all different aspects, and detrimental, really. It was pretty intense. But the point is that it's become easier. It's not that there still isn't difficult things, but I started looking at that, and I was just like, why does all this stuff happen? Like, why did really, I asked that question, why, a lot. Like, I still do, but always have, actually. But the point is that I was thinking about, I think, as an example, I was considering becoming involved in a situation, but after asking all the whys, I was like, I basically realized that I could handle whatever situation that was, but I knew deep down that I wasn't supposed to. Now, you can relate this to what you're supposed to do or what you're not supposed to do, but you have to figure out what you're not willing to do and what your guidelines are to be able to sort out what it is that you want to do, right? You got to figure out all the parts that keep you stuck to be able to be free to choose. But this sentence came to me, this statement, which was, just because I can doesn't mean I have to, right? Just because I can handle it doesn't mean I have to, because I think part of what you think you can handle, particularly in ways of what you receive in your body and deal with, is this card. But just because you can doesn't mean that you have to. You don't. Like, how would you feel about yourself if you didn't know anything about astrology? Your sun sign, even, at very least. How would you define yourself? I'm not saying that's not helpful information. I'm just saying that if we strip it down to the smallest common denominator, like what's the point, right? What's the point of the story? I wrote a story, and period. I am, period. I see you talking more about what you're sensitive about is important during this time too. Like how you're feeling about things. But there's also something where when you do finally say it, because I feel like you keep it in this cup for a long time, maybe instead of just keeping it all in and then blurting it out, because remember, Mercury's in your sign too. It's a tough one. I have it natally, so I get it. But, maybe phrasing things in a different way will help your communication. Like when you're going through something, be like, how, you think about what you're going through and you feel it out, and you realize that you're climbing out of, you ended up in a lower space and now you're climbing out of it, right? And you're about to like expand and extend yourself out into the physical world, out of yourself. Well, then maybe express it in such a way where you're like, I heard more in a Gemini-like way, where you would be like, what do what would you do in this circumstance? Have you ever had to deal with this? And what that actually is doing is causing you to be, it will cause yourself to learn how to be more vulnerable, and also to connect to people, because I sense that that's what you need, but it also is something that you feel like you lack, like a really deep, intimate connection with people on a soulful level, because a lot of people can be egotistical. That's the hard part, I think, about, not that there aren't beautiful parts about the aspect of Taurus, but like Taurus, as far as I know, rules the cerebellum, which is very base desires, right? And that's why they have you on the other end to be like, hey, you don't need anything, right? But those two things are wicked extreme. That's also why you come after Libras, to learn more about that. Of course, Libra's in your life too. I always sense the sign before your sun sign is important for learning from. I see February, March. I think you'll sort out these cards. Like from now until then, you're sort of sorting out this energy. And I sense that you're progressively, it's becoming easier for you to move through that, okay? Like when you come across your fears, or you come across things that kind of block you, right? Because you have a queen and a king here. You have death and the star. 6 of Cups, 6 of Wands, But this is the blockage. And the cool thing is that this isn't new. This is old, right? So what's that when you get married, or at least in the States? It's like, I don't know where I'm sure it comes from somewhere else originally, but something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Cool. I heard this would be an interesting thing. I don't know if you have time for this, but I think it would be a fun creative endeavor in a little bit of your spare time. Like, what are the things that you have, like material things, right? Because that's also, again, your opposite. And in the future, you're going to be examining also what your possessions are, right? Like, what are you possessed by? And what are your possessions materially? What are you possessed by internally, right? That, because you can just say, I desire not to be possessed by that anymore, or to have this possession anymore, and then it so shall be. Or you could say, I desire to possess that, and then it shall be also, in some form or another, right? So maybe going through your things, like, what's old, internally, externally, whatever. What's old? What's new? What have you borrowed from other people? Because to borrow something means that you have it for a little while and then you give it back, right? That could be some sort of the I possess also. And I sense this as internal too. Like, where maybe you borrowed a kind of energy that you needed in the past to help that person who it was that you were. But now that you're a new person, right? This new energy inside of you, well, maybe it's time to give that back, right? I think you can give it back now, right? I heard you don't need it anymore. Okay? Now, something blue also, maybe it would just behoove you to look, I feel like most Scorpios would look good in like a really deep blue. Or any blue, really. From daytime to nighttime sky, blue. Or maybe just notice blue things, you know. A little fact, too, that I find interesting is that blue wasn't a color for a very long time, you know that? It was always green. Like, if you read old literature, old text, they always describe the ocean or the waters as green, right? So just something to think about. You know, we say that word all the time. We use it to describe so many things, but it didn't exist. We called it something else before. You know, so maybe that's part of it. It's like you've had this definition of self and you in this world, and how you're supposed to communicate what it is that you see or understand, in hopes of having someone else understand. But there's something about it where you're just changing that definition. You're changing the word. You're changing the vocabulary of it. And I feel like that puts you more at ease, and that's really good, you know. There's something with Uranus, too. Uranus is shifting signs, right? That's in Taurus. So that means it opposes you. That can be a little challenging, right? Of course, it's in a different house for all of you. But, you know, just be aware. Like, I'm sure that you already know that your time of year it's a lot, right? It's a lot of change. According to Santos Bonacci, actually, love him, which is the Libra Scorpio cusp. This is specific to anyone born here, too. It's just it's kind of a tumultuous time, particularly economically. Although economico just means cheap in Latin, or Italian, means, you know, not a lot of money, but that's another story and word trickery. But, you know, it's just, this is when, you know, a lot of economic crashes have happened, and like, what does that do? It tumbles and shifts our structure and our own stability in this society. And that's why I think this will actually close out this reading, 2929, is that, you know, really getting back in tune with Mother Nature is so important, right? Like, what if the society collapsed? Just saying. I'm not being a fatalist here or a defeatist by any means. I'm just being logical about this. Mercury and Scorpio, it's Scorpio time. I think we can have a conversation about it. It's reality, right? Like, this isn't how we began, so it isn't how we're going to end. How we began is how we would end. The beginning always determines the end. So it's kind of just, you know, maybe really getting in tune with where it is that you live. Like, what grows there? What would you do? Like, you know, Uranus is electricity. Most people absolutely rely on everything electricity now, right? They don't even have wells anymore. They're on the city water and all this. It's just, how do you, and that goes back to that North Node in Cancer too. Like, who's your tribe? Who are you connecting to? It's important for you to say what it is that you feel and what it is that you want and what it is that you're going through, and even when it's, you don't know exactly what to do about it, because you understand that there's timing and, you know, divine timing involved in that. But it's important where it is that you want to go. And again, I heard May, you know, like middle of next year. You know, where you want to be in 5 years. What's your goal? What are your goals? Then I heard keep chipping at it. You know, if we go back to taking away electricity, how long would it take to build a house? You know, how long would it, imagine if you had to make your own chairs, right? Just to have somewhere to sit. And like, by the time you made a chair, it would take quite a while. And you have to have the tools, right? You got to make the tools too. So I heard, who knows how to do that in your circle? You know, do you have any skills like that? And then that's what the tribe's about, is like each person in the tribe understands how to do something. Sometimes you know how to do the same things, but it's important. Like, what are the strengths to the people in your tribe? What are the weaknesses? You know, but focusing more in on the strengths and supporting those. And then those weaknesses actually become stronger because, you know, you understand where the attention needs to be. Cool. I haven't really been paying attention to the moon. Well, I didn't do any research. I mean, besides looking at it. I look at the sky a lot, but I didn't go on the internet and check or anything. I don't have a book about it, so. All right, take care of yourself, okay? Happy birthday. See you later, Gator.